There we go. Okay. This is better. So my fantasy was that this song would be like playing in your ears and like angels would come down and like sing it over you. But we got this little speaker. So imagine that's happening for me, okay? I want you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine. I want you to create a fantasy about what you want to do with your life. And I want you to create a fantasy about what you want to see in Charleston, how you want to see this community evolve. That, of course, is David Bowie's song Heroes, one of my favorite songs ever, and that is Peter Gabriel's version from the Stranger Things soundtrack. Oh my goodness. Listen to it in your car later, you'll just start weeping like I do every time I hear it. It's been a really hard year. It's been a really, really tough year. We've lost three of our most creative and imaginative artists, Leonard Cohen, Prince, David Bowie. We've gone through an insane election, which leaves me on the brink of terror of what's going to happen next. And I also lost my godmother this year, Heidi McCormick. She got a brain tumor, and 8 weeks later, she was dead. And I've never had to deal with anything like that before in my life. And this song I found the day after she died. I came across this song, and I think this song's just a testament to fantasy, which I'm making synonymous with art in this case, where it helped me heal, it helped me grieve, it brought me closer to my family because I shared it with them, we listened to it together, and that's kind of the overarching theme today is what I want to say is just the importance of art and the importance of fantasy in our lives and in our community. Another great hero's story is in the movie Perks of Being a Wallflower. Anyone ever seen that film? Yep, a couple of you. Okay. It's really great if you haven't seen it. And there's this scene, and it's Hermione Granger, Emma Watson, and Charlie and their friend Patrick, and they're driving in this truck, and Heroes comes on. It's the early 90s is the film. Heroes comes over the radio, and Emma Watson goes, "What's this song?" And they go, "I don't know." And then she goes, "Go to the tunnel." And so they drive the truck into this tunnel, and then she gets up on the back of the truck, and she lifts her arms like this, and Bowie is blaring, and it is like the most bone-chilling thing ever. And Charlie, who suffers from serious depression, he was abused as a child, the protagonist of the film, looks at Patrick, who's gay, and in high school and going through struggles, and the song is blaring. He looks at me, he just says, "We are infinite." That is the power of art. That is the power of song. That is the power of fantasy, that feeling of infiniteness, that feeling of connectivity, that feeling of community. I did a bunch of research on fantasy, trying to, always want to start with a good definition, so I want to read that to you. What is fantasy? It's the faculty or activity, that's important, activity of imagining things, especially things that are impossible or improbable. It's imagination, especially when extravagant and unrestrained, and it's the forming of mental images, especially wondrous or strange fancies. I love the word fancies. Yeah, so fantasy comes with the act of creating. I think often fantasy is looked down upon as, oh, that's just a lie. Oh, that can never happen. Oh, that's an untruth. What is the purpose fantasy can serve us? I think grown-ups have long been searching for some kind of justification, some way to prove that fantasy is valuable. And I would most certainly argue that it's valuable as much, if not more, than reality. Fantasy and art are synonymous. Fantasy is creation, and I believe we're all creative beings. We're all here to create, and it's our choice to create a better future or a worse future. And I did want to touch briefly on, of course, the literary genre of fantasy. In my research, I came across an amazing woman who I have not read. Her name is Ursula Le Guin. And whoa, boy, she's the best. So she was a fantasy writer. Oh, I was supposed to go to that slide. Fantasy, I just talked about that. Ursula Le Guin was a fantasy writer in the she started writing a lot in the 60s. And this was a time when fantasy was looked down, the genre was looked down upon as lesser than the novelist and the poets, and, oh, this is just children's garbage. But what she was doing was she was using fantasy to address serious issues that were happening in the 60s. Gender roles, human rights. She would, through the fantasy, she'd create these other worlds that she could then address the America that she was living in at the time. And it was amazingly powerful, and she was able to use fantasy to bring about change. And she actually says, resistance and change often begin in art. And before I go into my story, I just want to quote Le Guin real quick so we can kind of have that as our foundation for the morning. While fantasy can indeed be mere escapism, wish fulfillment, indulgence in empty heroics, and brainless violence, it isn't so by definition and shouldn't be treated as if it were. Fantasy is a literature particularly useful for embodying and examining the real differences between good and evil. In an America where our reality may seem degraded to posturing patriotism, self-righteous brutality, imaginative literature continues to question what is heroism and examines the roots of power and offers moral alternatives. Imagination is the instrument of ethics. There are many metaphors besides battle, many choices besides war, and most ways of doing good do not in fact involve killing anybody. Fantasy is good at thinking about those other ways. Imagination working at full strength can shake us out of our fatal, adoring self-absorption and make us look up and see with terror or relief that the world does not in fact belong to us at all. So in short, fantasy imagination is just as important as reality. It is through imagination that we create, through fantasy that we can shape a better world. So Le Guin said it all. I'll see you later. God, that's so good. She's amazing. Through fantasy we can shape a better world. I am from Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up right here on Mount Pleasant, which I call the pit of despair sometimes. Went to Puerto Rico for 12 years, and I graduated from the College of Charleston. I wanted to get out of here, so I tried to move to Vancouver. They didn't let me into Canada because they thought I was trying to move in to work illegally, which I was. They caught me. Okay, sorry. So I moved to Seattle, ran out of all my money, couldn't find a job, was completely broken, and that's when my mom flew out, and we had a mom-son road trip back here. Real high point of my life. Riding back with Mom. We had the best time. Who knew Mom was so good at blackjack? She won all the money in St. Louis. I lost everything. But I had a really, really, really hard high school experience. I don't know if any of you know Porter-Gaud. It is a one-minded, over-rich environment where if you're not one way, these students just ignore the beans out of you. And it was a tough time. So for me, I first started using fantasy as a way to create a better world for myself and to get out of the reality of going to school every day and eating alone at lunch and being pretty miserable in my environment. And that started with music. Music was a way from an early age that I found that I just felt good. It felt great. I could create, I could engage, and it was a way for me to rise above what was going on around me and really just pull from whatever it was, the ethos, the community, whatever it is, to really create things that felt good for me. I started sorry, the photos are so horrible. I'm the worst photographer in the planet, as you can see sometimes by our Instagram, which none of those photos are taken by me at the music hall because my staff won't let me anymore. Nor will they let me comment on them. You're not supposed to put @ in the comments. I didn't know that. So, I started a band in high school with my best friend Dan Hampf. It wasn't really a band. What we would do is every Saturday night, we were really cool. Every Saturday night, junior and senior year, we would gather in front of Millennium Music downtown, which is now the Walgreens. Shows you where the city's going, eh? So it used to be Millennium Music, which was the sanctum of music. They had a classical section, books, no records yet. Records weren't a thing, but tons of CDs, loads of them. And we were called Introducing Fish Taco because we started across the street at Moe's, and they were introducing their fish taco that month. And we're like, dang, this is free advertising. And the name stuck. So, but we found out that there was more sidewalk space in front of Millennium. So we hopped across the street, and some nights there would literally be 50 kids making this archway around the door of Millennium Music, and we would make songs. We would do improv music about dragons and ninjas and Harry Potter, lots of dinosaurs, just weird stuff. And it gathered, and we'd get this little following Saturday nights, so much so that Millennium had to start they got mad because no one could get in their door because all these kids were like blocking it out. We led parades. This one time we sang "Hey Ya" for about 1 hour straight as we paraded from Millennium down King Street over to Market, and then it ended in front of what is Welk, it was Cafe Paradiso, with everyone just spinning in this giant circle, screaming "Hey Ya" and throwing things. It was the best. It was the best. And that really, truly, that's when I saw oh my gosh, we can just create these worlds. It engages people. They come out. We're on the streets, and I saw the power of music through that. It's my favorite, Fish Taco, not the band. Saw that on a bathroom stall. That felt pretty cool. And that's me if I had a beard, which I can't grow, but one day. So kind of taking that as an artist, as a creative, as someone trying to do music and improv and comedy with Dan, I then in college moved to a house on Spring Street, and I built this beautiful stage out of wood in my backyard, and I got a PA system, and we started this thing called Bean Night. Every Tuesday night, we would have people gather to our house. I would cook a giant pot of beans and rice, and people would eat. Sometimes they'd bring bread or cheese to throw in. And the point was we would all eat together, and then we would go out back to our backyard and have an open stage night. Started with 15 of us. This was 2010. 15 of us, and it grew to 150 in 3 months. It was, it was insane. And that is where I saw the hunger of, oh my gosh, people need to gather, and people need to gather around art. And a lot of spoken word, more poetry and spoken word than music at first, which I like, because I didn't want to just be Joe Schmo's open guitar mic. Let's sing Third Eye Blind songs together. No, you have to do all original content, and it became really great. it became kind of into a party. At one point, some drunk girl was vomiting while someone was reciting Ulysses by heart. And at that point, I was like, what are we doing? So I moved it to Kudu. There's our backyard. We moved to Kudu and started kind of making it more orchestrated. I would do highlighted musicians, highlighted poets, but all from the Charleston community and giving them more of a platform to stand on. And this is when I got the bug of, oh my gosh, I love gathering humans in a room. And I've always the person, you probably know this person, who like invites the two opposite friend groups to the same party and then makes them, like tries to make them all mingle. But then literally the one like group will be in this room and the entire other group will be in the other room, and I'll just be running back and forth like, so that's what I always did, which sorry if you're my friend and I've done that to you. But I love it. And collaboration was coming out of it. People were, a lot of romance happened out of it. I think like 3 marriages happened out of Bean Night, which is great. So that kind of laid the foundation of when I came back to Charleston in 2012, I was looking for work. I was an English major. I loved music. I didn't really think that was a career choice. Turns out it was. So I went to the owner of the music hall. Long story short, went to the owner of the music hall. It's privately owned, 965-seat venue. And I just asked him, can I run this? And he said, I don't know where the keys are, but if you find the keys, you can give it a shot. I said, okay, cool, I'll find those keys. Found the keys, went in, spent the first year really just refurbishing it. It was underutilized and pretty beat up. It was opened in '94 for Serenade, which was a 6-night show, kind of like a Carolina Opry, Calvin Gilmore. That failed after 2 years, and then it was just kind of managed by a bunch of different people for, almost 15 years. And then 2009, they kind of said, all right, let's just make it a rental-only facility. Well, my vision was not for it to be a rental-only facility. I wanted it to be a self-promoting, creating, and producing arts center. And so that's kind of what we've been striving towards for the last 4 years. You might know it from this, the Charleston Christmas Special, which is running 16 nights in December. Brad and Jennifer Morantz are doing their 22nd Christmas show this year. And so this was kind of all that was happening in the hall at the time, which is a wonderful show. It certainly brings the fantasy of Christmas to life. But I really wanted to see what else we could do with it. My first show I ever booked was this show called the Unchained Tour, and Neil Gaiman and different authors came in, and it was the Moth podcast is what it was based on. And it was amazing. 700 people came out. They showed up in this old bus. This man named Edgar Oliver, if you haven't heard of him, look him up. He's an amazing performance artist, spoke. This thing keeps going forward. And again, I think my journey has just been me, like, I'm not that quick of a learner, I guess, but just like once I see it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is really amazing and powerful and good stuff. And that's the same with, I never thought 700 people would show up to hear people read stories, but they did, and they engaged, and it just showed me how important, once again, story is and creation is for a community. And so my model at the hall has really been, I want this to be an open space. I want to be able to do as many and different events in the music hall as possible. Everything from tech conferences to, sold out local music shows, Brave Baby Susto, the like. I think we've had most local acts in there at this point. Charleston Jazz Orchestra does 6 shows a year. Charlton Singleton leads big band jazz. On Tuesday, they had 1,800 elementary school kids come through the hall learning about jazz. Most of them have never seen a live concert in their entire life. How do we keep the creative community rolling? We've got to educate the kids. We have to. It will not sustain without them. So that's some cool stuff that happened this week. Get to work with lovelies like Shovels and Rope. Get to build tents and try and make some kind of setup here with local musician Stephen Fiore. So just trying to use. So we have a stage, all right. We have 900 seats. What can we do to push the limits? What can we do to bring people together? And what are artists doing? They're creating, they're fantasizing, they're building these worlds for you to step into and hopefully learn and be encouraged and walk away engaged and talking. We do this Groundhog Day concert every year, the 5th one this year with the Halsey Institute. And that's a big thing too, is that I love about the Hall is collaboration. It's all about collaboration. It doesn't work without collaboration. And we are where we are because of the amazing arts organizations in the city and the people who are wanting to collaborate and put on shows, put on events. Everything from dance, just gonna whip through these. St. Paul, Glenn Hansard. I came across him in the dressing room and he was ironing his shirt and singing an Irish tune, and I lost my heart. It was the best thing ever. Last week we had a YA conference, the largest young adult literary conference in the entire country was at the Music Hall last week, Y'all Fest, 120 young adult authors, and we saw over 6,000 kids come in and out the hall. It was a free event, free and open to the public. Owen Colfer was the keynote. He wrote the Artemis Fowl series, if anyone read those. And to see the passion these kids had for reading, it's insane. Reading's still a thing. Who knew? It's great. And, they were meeting their authors. They were meeting Veronica Roth, who wrote the Divergent series, crying and engaging, and so amazing to see that energy from these kids who are all reading, and most of them are about fantasy. And that comes back to Le Guin. I mean, they're engaging with the fantasy because, of course, it's exciting and interesting, but also it can use that fantasticalness, I'll say, to teach them about some really awesome stuff. And no one, we saw people just helping each other all day long. A little girl didn't get a Disney book, and another little girl went and handed it to her, and another girl didn't get in the right line, and someone gave her wristband. I saw these little acts of kindness just keep happening last week, and it just kept reminding me, like, okay, there is good here. There is hope here. Like, we are going to be fine. Oh, I hope. And then also doing, some great stuff with partner with Mark Bryan from Hootie and the Blowfish to start live at the Charleston Music Hall. We filmed our last show last night. We have season 1 done. ETV has picked it up. It's going to be seen by 54 million viewers across the country. It's 10 concerts we filmed, and College of Charleston partnered up, Charlie Production partnered up, and through this great collaborative effort, it kind of highlights, that's my timer, I'm going to speed up, highlights the South, which is great. I've also started Murias Entertainment, which is concert promotion, venue management, artist management. I really have wanted to do weirder stuff that I can't do at the hall. And so through Murias, been able to do stuff in alternative spaces. We do 30-plus shows at Redux every year. We did a show at Pure Theater last week, Wolf Street Theater, Commodore, Royal, Tin Roof, Poorhouse. We're getting into all these different venues and getting to work with all the venue folks and different, little universes there, which has been amazing. That's Redux. You pack out Redux with 100 people. It's awesome. This band, Knower from LA, they had giant flying hot dogs projected behind them as she just gyrated the whole time. It was awesome. I've also been working with this wonderful band called Susto for the last year. If you haven't listened to them, check them out. New album comes out January 13th. Little plug. Which has been also amazing to work on the artist management side and see this group of humans collaborating within themselves and, being on the road for 150 days this year, which is insane when you're getting paid $200 a show to make that work. And they just are so loving and so wonderful. And it's really been nice to see both sides of the coin and to see the artist standpoint and the venue standpoint and to really kind of get to be creative with them and, help them do what they're doing. Real quick, what's my fantasy? To keep Charleston great, for us to be able to continue to make this a flourishing art city. I think the music scene is stronger than it's ever been right now. And I think that's a lot to do with the collaborations that's going on, from Hearts and Plugs to the band sharing members to shared spaces within the city. Just a quick idea I wanted to maybe do one day, Holy City Music Festival, downtown Charleston, 10 venues. I just think we really need a music festival in downtown Charleston to highlight the venues. We can do main stage in Marion Square, it can spread out throughout the city. So hopefully that'll happen one day. And also I really want to see a more, and I know we like a Redux, but for musicians, see a more collaborative workshop space that combines performance, rehearsal, office, recording space, where kind of to make a hub for musicians to come together and be able to create and be able to meet. And so that's hopefully, we're been slowly but surely moving towards finding a space for that. So hopefully that'll happen in the near future. Okay, whew, that was a lot. But yeah, I want to leave you with, well, first off, what's your fantasy for Charleston? I want to encourage you, do it so often. And I don't know, it's not just here, but I see it happen here so much. People talk, and they don't do anything. So I really encourage you, if you have an idea or a fantasy, just do it. Go knock on the door of whoever owns the building and ask if you can do something there. And they might say yes. And then next thing you know, you're doing 250 events a year with over 100 organizations. So I want you to leave with encouragement that anything is possible. And you can do it if you just go and do it. I found like a Nike ad, but you can do it. What are my other fantasies that I think we can all work together? Low line. Let's get the dang low line done, please. Public transportation. It doesn't really exist here. That's insane. How are we supposed to live in a city without public transportation? Doesn't work. How about a bike lane? That'd be great. Where are all the bike lanes? We're losing Kirk Kavanaugh. Someone pick up the torch where he left off. Let's get the Ashley River bike lane done. Whew, it fires me up because I want to see people move back downtown. I want to see people live in this city and be able to move around this city easily, or else we're not going to be able to create anything. So you think about what we can do, how we can make this city great. And I want to leave you with a Patti Smith quote. I love her dearly. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening to me. And yeah, come see some shows at the Music Hall. And if you ever have any ideas about what you want to do, please hit me up. I'm always happy to try and connect people and make anything happen. So Patti, the wisdom of you. Build a good name. Keep your name clean. Don't make compromises. Don't worry about making a bunch of money or being successful. Be concerned about doing good work. Protect your work, and if you build a good name, eventually that name will be its own currency. Life is a roller coaster ride. It is going to have perfect moments and rough spots, but it's all worth it. Thank y'all. Have a wonderful evening.
Charles, you want to take some questions real quick? We got some time.
Oh, good.
Yeah? Don't go just yet. Does anybody have a question for Charles? Whoa, all right. David.
So all those different photos you had and different interpretations of what you can do on stage, did that come out of your mind, or did you help project what the artist want? Where did that creative element come from, and how much do you do and allow it?
Yeah, it comes from the artist and me. So basically with like Rachel Kate with the giant, she said, Charles, this isn't possible. I want a giant paper chain to be hanging all over the stage. I said, it is possible, Rachel Kate. We can do it. So a lot of the times it is a collaboration. The artist comes and says, we want kind of to make this, and then I'll work with them to do it. We've had artists and craftsmen do a lot of set designs, and sometimes I just surprise them. Like with Steven, I was like, surprise, I made a campground for you, which can work because he's my friend. But usually, if he wasn't, they'd probably be pretty mad at me. But yeah, it kind of goes both ways, which is great. Which is why I love my job, is because that's the creative element that I kind of get to be involved in.
So I moved to Baltimore about a year ago, and I was lucky enough to always catch a lot of acts on tour that would stop in Baltimore. And I noticed
They're not stopping here.
shows, rebuild. Do you see that changing?
I do. Yeah, it is. Slowly but surely, we lack a few things. Number one, we lack venues. We do not have a 300 to 500 cap open space in downtown Charleston where we can grow the scene. The Poorhouse is wonderful. Royal American's wonderful. But never mind. I'm not going to say anything negative. But we need a smaller venue in downtown to grow the scene. And if we can't incubate the bands that can bring the 200 to 500 people, they can't keep growing here, and they're not going to come here. Charleston's really weird, and it's been really hard to convince booking agents, to send their artists here because we're not on a normal booking path. They'll do Raleigh, maybe Asheville, Atlanta, and then they're on their way. Greenville. Here they kind of, they have this perception that it's out of the way to get to. And what we've been working to do is to kind of train them that no, it's not far, it's a great city. Case in point, Jason Isbell. We got him here. He now takes 2 days off every time he plays in Charleston because he loves the city so much and he just wants to be here. So I think as we keep doing that, we're seeing, more and more artists want to play here. But again, we've got to have a venue for them to do it. And we also have to have promoters of the arts. There are about 3 promoters in this entire city doing, larger than 300 cap shows. And quite frankly, their music taste is horrible. We're stuck in the 90s in this city, and I can't figure out how we can get out of it. And that's just the unfortunate thing. And then the other side of it is people have to go to shows. It's just as much as on the community and the people here as it is on the bookers and the venues. When you book, we had this great Canadian punk band, post-punk band called Ought that we did at the Poorhouse. Ought is selling 500 tickets in every market in the country. We sold 80 here. 80. They're not going to come back. They can't sustain that. So they're going to go on and do something else. And unfortunately, that goes back to the booking agent, and then it just. So really, it's the three. It's the relationship between artist, audience, venue. Just we have to make it tighter here in order to keep the momentum going. But I think we're moving that direction. And whoever you want to bring to Charleston, all you have to do, all their contact is right there. Just hit them up. That's what we got to start doing. If everyone just starts hitting up their favorite artists or talking to venues, because we're trying to book as diverse acts as we can, but there's only so much we can do, especially within the ramifications of expenses, blah, blah, blah. So I would just encourage you to just reach out to them, reach out to venues, and try and get them here. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that I've seen this change over 4 years, but when I came on, a lot of the venues were pretty polarized into their own world and not really willing to talk to each other and work with each other. And they were it was weird. It was like they were almost paranoid about talking to each other because they were scared they were going to steal each other's acts. You can't. I mean, there's not enough acts coming to town to steal acts. But what I've seen is that a great relationship is starting to develop with some venues, to where, like Alex at the Poorhouse, right? He can build a deer tick, if you will, up to 4. He only has 400 capacity, and he can build them. And now we've been great about talking to each other about, okay, we can build in this room, and then they can go to the music hall, and then they can go to the pack, and we've started to see that happen more and more. But I mean, the challenges are if the venues aren't working together, then we're all just fighting each other. Which the reality is, we shouldn't be fighting within the city. We're actually fighting other cities to get artists here. We're fighting, not fighting, but you know what I mean, in competition with Charlotte, Greenville, Atlanta to get the artists here. And if the venues don't work together, it's not going to work. And then the second part was city. Yes, they've been really great on a lot of points. They just don't seem to get it on a lot of other points. I mean, bus parking, for example. The visitor center parking garage doesn't fit a bus. Where am I supposed to put tour buses? They say, I say, what do? They won't let me bag the meters in front of the music hall. They won't let me bag meters down the street. So that's been pretty horrible. And we've gone through as many different parking streams as we can. So now we're just putting the bus on the street. But I mean, I hate that it came to that. I would have loved to see them be like, oh, we get it. When you have 900 people coming to a concert, they're spending money all over the city, be it with taxis or, even like clothes for business, which is like down the street. I'll go in there and they'll be like, what shows are coming? Because everyone sees a larger impact when you get that many people into one space. So, But other than that, I mean, we've done a lot of collaboration. You know, we've done a lot with Piccolo Spoleto. We've worked with Mojer this year, and I love doing it, and it's a good thing. So I hope to keep building that relationship. Yeah, one more, maybe.
Where's the blues?
Oh, there's blues. Gary Irwin's doing, what's his name? Where's the blues? There's some blues, but there's, I can't remember his name. Shrimp City Slim. Shrimp City Slim's bringing a bunch of blues in, but just in smaller alternate venues.
There's nothing big enough for them, huh?
What do you mean?
Like jazz, I see a scene here. I mean, it's definitely nothing like large cities, but like you never find or hear about blues coming through. And I feel like it's so right here in the South. No, nothing's tapped into it.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen, North Mississippi All Stars were just here. Kevmo plays here a bunch. The Poorhouse does a bunch of blues stuff. Who? Bing Cleary, that would be awesome. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's just one example. How about electronic dance music? When's the last time I went to one of those shows here? How about a punk show? When's the last time I saw one of those here? I mean, the genre hip hop. I mean, we have a huge issue with diversity in this city, and unfortunately, it's kind of becoming a black and white issue, which is not really. It's more of a genre issue, which is most people here want to see Southern rock or Americana. So when you try and put on an electronic show, a hip-hop show, you just aren't seeing people come out, which goes back to my last point, which is just kind of if that doesn't happen, the genre's not going to make it. So if more people come out to blues shows and more people come out to whatever, then we're going to see that grow.
We have time for one more or final thoughts.
Oh, tonight, if you want to kind of see what's going on, and thank you. my I don't even know what you are. My bearded angel. Pecha Kucha is tonight. Pecha Kucha, all things musical. 7 presenters of people living and working in the music industry in Charleston. So if you're interested, please come. One of them is sitting in this room, which is lovely, and there'll be 6 others, 3 musical acts. Hunter Park, Very Hypnotic Soul Band, which is a great mix of hip-hop and indie rock that came out of the Mother Emanuel shooting. Pretty cool story there. Plantation singers are singing, and you'll hear from hip-hop artists, artist management, venue owners, kind of just all touching on the music scene here. So tonight at 8, we have Pecha Kucha 25. 15, but if you say Creative Morning, I'll get you in the door for free. Oh, I mean that. If you say Creative Morning at the box office, please just come. We have about 400 seats to fill, so I'd love for y'all to be there.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Bonnie will be at the box office, so just tell her and she'll help you out.
Charles, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.